Welcome to the 6:50 news. I'm Kejang Henry Atembe in Douala. Time for our headlines. "17-year-old boy suspected of patricide in Yaoundé. Family members still to understand the reasons behind the killing of a father by a 17-year-old boy. And first, scarcity hits the city of Yaoundé once again, impacting the southern regions, particularly in Kribi and the Boulevard. Queues of people struggling to get fuel for the day. Those were top stories. Thanks and welcome. You can hook up with us on our Facebook page and on our YouTube handle. I'm Kejang Henry at Timbe in Douala. Now, like we have in our lead story, a 70-year-old boy is presently being held in custody after he was suspected of killing his father in Yaoundé. And inhabitants at the Nkondongo neighborhood are still to come to terms with this killing. However, family members can still make out the reasons for such a patricidal killing. Details with Hyacinth.
Wonders they say shall never end. He allegedly butchered his father in cold blood, squeezing life out of him on Sunday afternoon. The unbelievable act, which unfolded here at the Nkondongo neighborhood, Yaoundé 4 subdivision, took many by a storm as they recount. It was at about 3 to 4 p.m. My brother told me he was going to change and go for a meeting. I left for my own house. After a few minutes, I heard my cousin shouting and calling, telling me my brother is dead, and then rushed to his house, saw him on the floor. We equally saw an axe and a pool of blood. And this is the bar of the deceased, where he left that unfortunate afternoon to change his clothes, to go for a meeting before he met his Waterloo from his 17-year-old son. The family members yet to comprehend such a barbaric action. I'm really shocked for this action from my younger cousin. It is hard to take. We are still waiting for him to tell us exactly what pushed him to commit such an act. We really need to know what went wrong. The reasons given by the supposed perpetrator is that the father disrespected him. And as the gloomy atmosphere continued to reign here at the family residence, the lifeless body has been deposited at the Yaoundé General Hospital mortuary, while the presumed murderer remains in police custody for justice to take its course.
Well, very unfortunate there. Thanks very much, Hassan Chow. The search for fuel is on in a boulevard, the south region of Cameroon, where the major means of transportation is on commercial motorbikes. And as this situation has been going on for the past 3 months, more in these businesses are all grounded as pumping stations or filling stations are crowded on a daily basis.
This is how crowded filling stations are in the south region of Cameroon. The long queues show how desperate drivers are in need of fuel. With jerrycans in their hands, they camp all day in filling stations. The town is hit by fuel scarcity. I'm here since 6 a.m. The crowd keeps swelling by the day, difficult for security officers to control. I've been at the filling station from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. We can't feed our families. This is because they depend on the bike for survival. Inhabitants are already feeling the pinch as motorcycles remain one of the dependable means of transportation. It's so difficult to displace ourselves, especially getting to work. This provoked an increase in transportation from 100 to 200 francs CFA. Meantime, filling stations have chosen to ration fuel in order to satisfy the excruciating demand.
Well, thanks very much, more indeed. From Ebolowa to Yaoundé, the situation is not different as city dwellers are forced to pay higher than the standard fare. Whereas transport trade unions or transporter trade unions are around to look for reasons behind the fuel scarcity. Hassan Shah went talking to one of them and says the government is responsible for this particular situation.
It has been 2 days of enormous transport difficulties at the Yaoundé capital city imposed by the fuel scarcity. The population felt the heat as the taxi drivers and commercial motorbike riders disregarded the usual transport fare.
On a payé plus pour beaucoup de cas. D'autres gens même qui n'avaient pas d'argent marchaient à pied. Quand vous amenez vous 200, que vous allez peut-être à une distance que vous avez l'habitude de payer 200, le motoman vous dit que c'est 350 ou 400. Vous n'avez pas de choix. Tu te décourages, tu vas à pied ou bien tu rentres.
A situation Cameroonians are yet to understand. Even the transport trade union leaders say they got no information, no explanations about the petroleum shortage, as the usual meetings with the government had long come to a standstill.
We have decided since 20 years that CSPH with trade union have to meet every 3 months to have information about petrol situation. But as I'm speaking with you, since 1 year, CSPH has refused. There's no more any contact between we and CSPH. Now, we are not the one who are going to arrest CSPH and say, come, let's dialogue. The dialogue is an institution known by the head of state. And if CSPH think that they don't have information to give us, we just wait.
The transport stakeholders say no to the speculations on the possible increase of fuel prices.
If they do it just because they want to increase the price of fuel, we say no, because we don't need any increasing of price of fuel without debate.
And it is worth noting that the precious liquid is gradually coming back in different filling stations in Yaoundé this Tuesday, December 10th.
Hope the situation gets better. After being deprived of the recent end-of-year frenzy, elements of the Bamenda Central Police Station have been offered a special party 1 week after securing the population to feast in a peaceful atmosphere. This was coupled with some special recognitions to 3 colleagues of the delegate by the Delegate General of National Security for assiduity at work. With calls from our Northwest Regional Bureau Chief Correspondent Nanyi Kalins. This is Chin.
Police Constables Mbila Tadei and Yerima Grichi Hamadu and Senior Police Constable Ngema Ella Robert, all serving at the Bamenda Central Police Station, have received special congratulations from the Delegate General for National Security. According to police hierarchy, the 3 were part of a team of 5 who arrested a drug dealer at New City in Bamenda on 15 November 2021, said to be specialized in supplying narcotics to armed gangs. The special letters saluting their outstanding service to the nation were handed them over the weekend in a special ceremony at the Old Town Office of the police.
When you work hard, sometimes your hierarchy have to recognize what you did like effort. So in our context, it is very, very difficult to work. So sometimes when you have some achievements, your hierarchy will recognize what you did and will give you letters of congratulations.
The ceremony was coupled with a belated Christmas and New Year party because the police was barred from feasting alongside the population, but to be on guard for a hitch-free festive period.
Very, very happy with what happened during the festive period. We're able to feast in Bamenda for the first time in like 5 years without a single gunshot. And this is not a matter of coincidence. It is because the disposition that we put in place, the security disposition, was so tight in such a way that it was very difficult for any man of the underworld to penetrate.
It should be noted that the 2 other policemen have already been transferred elsewhere, also sharing in the common meal ceremony were the senior divisional officer for MESAM, the president of the Bamenda Court of First Instance, and the regional coordinator of the DDR.
Thanks very much, Stephanie Chin and Annie Collins. The Glencore scandal, the corruption spill in relations to public expenditure, execution of the budget lines 65 and 94, and high inflation rates, as well as the tax increase and monetary transactions in the country were some of the major economic highlights in Cameroon in the year 2022. And in the following report, Ambo Gladys Debang says Cameroon's economic landscape was also characterized by energy shortage or challenges that almost grounded several sectors of the economy. Her report.
One of the major economic highlights of the year 2022 in Cameroon was shortage of fuel and cooking gas that almost paralyzed activities in several sectors. Enterprises that heavily depend on energy for production were affected. The Russian-Ukrainian conflict was blamed for the shortages.
We have a kind of shock concerning energy. We have a few crises that impact all the country. We saw many people running after fuel in our big towns.
Economy as a whole is energy transformed. Be it if you are selling, you need to transport your goods. If you are producing, you need energy to produce. If you are transforming, you need energy to transform.
Cameroon's limited foreign reserves was also identified as a major effect to the constant energy scarcity.
Our international transactions are becoming a little bit, complicated because the currencies in the operational accounts in the francs is becoming, empty to actually cover our international transactions.
Government announced it spends about 700 billion and 75 billion francs CFA to subsidize fuel and cooking gas, respectively, in 2022. The gas plant project, inaugurated in Bamenda the same year, is expected to curb the challenges of cooking gas supply in the months ahead. And as part of the effects of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Cameroon reportedly witnessed a 4.6% inflation rate, far above the CEMAC threshold. The 0.2% tax increase on monetary transactions also left Cameroonians in a dilemma.
It is a kind of tax that impacts everyone, and that one causes many problems. Not only for people that were impacted by the tax, but also for the government.
And as Cameroonians were worried on the tax on monetary transactions, the Glencore scandal resurfaced, with the multinational company pleading guilty of corruption charges, including the payment of bribes of about 7 billion francs CFA to Cox officials of the National Hydrocarbons Company and the National Refinery Company, Sonara, to favor Glencore's operations in Cameroon. A couple of weeks later, another corruption scandal emerged related to public expenditures executed on budget lines 65 and 94 over 12 financial years. Following investigations from the Supreme State Audit, about 5,400 billion francs CFA was spent by some civil servants on unregistered and unknown foreign missions between 2010 and 2021, representing about 12% of general expenditures. Staff of the Ministry of the Economy were grilled to that effect. Meantime, the 2023 state budget was approved by Parliament to the tune of 6,345.1 billion francs CFA, noticing an increase of 4.4% as compared to the 2022 state budget.
Thanks, Beatrice Ambo Gladys. And now our chief correspondent in Yaoundé, Beatrice Ngamo, takes an economic retrospective of how it greatly influenced the market.
Inflation is the increase in general level of prices or in the cost of living, rated in 2022 at 2.9% compared to 2.3% in 2021, according to the National Institute of Statistics. The impact of Ukraine-Russian war, major suppliers of wheat, fertilizers, iron and steel products to Cameroon. Cameroon is also structurally reliant on imported rice, frozen fish and other processed foods. The upward pressures on global prices of commodities impacting the market.
We have low standards of living, high cost cost of living, unemployment, price hike, increase in fuel prices.
The cost of a kilogram of wheat flour rose from 500 at the beginning of 2022 to 600 and 700 francs by the month of May. About 500 francs has been added to vegetable cooking oil in the market. So too, a kilogram of rice has also pushed up, plus 100, 200 francs, depending on the grain. All this further weakened the purchasing power of households, recovering from the COVID-19 related price increase since early 2020, worsened by the fact that our main source of debt reimbursement revenue are petroleum, oil, and exploitation from soil mineral, which are weak. Increasing prices are likely to reduce total import to insufficient domestic supply. True, the government has been prioritizing and subsidizing coping strategies to help reduce price impact on household budget. A balance, or again, 3 square meals at the family level, not a reality, especially with limited budget and salaries, which is still at the same level despite the odds. While the government is insisting on the promotion of local production and spirit of consuming made in Cameroon. With a 2023 budget of 6,345.1 billion, representing an increase of 4.4% compared to previous financial year, that seeks to create jobs, boost export, economic stabilization measures, and revenue mobilization, there is hope, especially as Cameroon projects an economic growth rate of 4.2% in 2023 compared to a forecast growth of 3.7% in 2022.
Thanks, Beatrice Ngamo from Yaoundé, and the Indomitable Lions selection. That is the intermediate Lions are already flying out of Cameroon, out of their base to Algeria in the next hour for the 7th edition of the African Nations Championship Shan. The 7th edition that is supposed to flag off in 2 days is supposed Cameroon will be part of that ceremony. And, of course, on that competition. And Sherifa Charlie says, so far, the Indomitable Lions are putting up a great show after 3 outings in friendlies.
2 draws and 1 victory in 3 warm-up encounters. That is the score sheet for the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon as they head off to Algeria for this year's African Nations Championship, which opens in Algeria on January 13, 2023. Their first encounter ended with a 1-1 against Uganda on January 5. Then another draw on the same score against Ivory Coast on January 7 and ended on Monday, January 9, 2023, a victory 2-0 against Sudan. Encounters that allowed Saidou Alioum to test several players in key positions. From all indications, the same disposition shall be displayed in Algeria in a few days. Captain Dor Mokoko and his 24 teammates fly to Oran, their host city in Algeria, and will enter the competition on January 16 against Congo-Brazzaville. It is to be noted that Cameroon has never won the African Nations Championship.
Well, thanks, Sherifa Saleh, for that reporting. Just to say that, well, the Indomitable Lions or Intermediate Lions are already on a good foot, and we wish them well in that continental expedition. That draws the curtain for this edition of the 650 News. I've been Kejang Henry Athembe, thanking you for your kind attention. The next program, The Brief, is coming up with Lee Piju in a split second. Good day.